Next coming up will be the intent panel. Yeah, so intent has been a buzzword lately. That's here what our esteemed guests have to say about it. Yeah, Shukyee, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. How are you doing today? Doing good?
Great.
Yeah, so my name is Shukyee and I'm the CMO at Polyhedra Network. And I'm not, I got super sick this day, so please bear with me if I'm not, I'm in low energy mode. But I will try my best to make this panel sounds really interesting to all of you guys. And Polyhedra Network, we've been building this ZK bridge and we have our own ZK algorithms and we can, provide all kinds of ZK service for you guys, including ZK research, ZK bridge, derivative products based on ZK bridge. And why I am here today to be the moderator, it's because we are also interested in doing something with the intent. So we're working on the intent-based bridge. And I'm glad that I'm here to be with all this amazing panelists here. So that's me and Polyhedra Network. And next we're gonna start, with Riley here to introduce yourself and your project and your role there.
Yeah, so my name is Riley. I'm a software engineer at Uniswap Labs. Most recently, did a lot of work on Uniswap X. So that's kind of our intent-based swapping flow. And then have transitioned to working more on V4 as of recently.
Yeah, next.
Hello. Oh, hey, I'm Kilian. I'm currently doing a PhD in astrophysics and machine learning at the University of Cambridge. And my project, I work with Interface, leading the research efforts for intent-based systems. We just closed our pre-seed, more or less, and Foresight was kind enough to invest in us.
Hi guys, I'm Alex. I work for the company called Dapples. We provide a service for all the DeFi projects, provide them the multi-chain user experience. And for the users, they don't necessarily, understand a lot of stuff by themselves, but they can just enjoy all the DeFi in the industry.
Mic check. I go by Apriori. I work on Anoma for Heliax. We are a public goods laboratory. And I do, I suppose, research communications and some application research and a bunch of different things. And I am built on intents, among other things.
Thanks for the introduction here. So let's begin with our first question. So how do you envision the integration of intents impacting the future of rollups and their efficiency? Let's begin from this side.
Yeah, I can start. I think from the context of Uniswap, so things that I'm working on every day, we are looking at building cross-chain Uniswap X. So right now, doing any kind of like interoperability, bridging between chains is pretty difficult and like not a great user experience. But I think with our Uniswap X or just these generalized like intent swapping architectures that are coming about, you can improve this cross-chain interoperability greatly, make it way more efficient, much more quicker, and solve some of the user experience problems. I mainly think about it from like this cross-chain swapping perspective.
With Interface, we are trying to build a generalized intent serving platform. So when we think about rollups, there might be in the future some, let's say, killer app that is built on a L2. So with our intent-based platform, we are trying to find the optimal route. If it's a L2 or L1, it doesn't really matter for us. So within Interface, we have a mantra that we are like L1 or L2 agnostic, as long as the route and the code we can deliver for the users is the best or the cheapest or the most efficient one.
Cool. So for us, right, the roll-ups, you can think it's much cheaper in the gas fee, and but the issue is currently a lot of funds or a lot of users are still in the midnight. They are still in, let's say, BNB. All of those, it's very hard for them to actually bridge in all the money or actually operate into, let's say, layer 2s and the roll-ups. But by using our service, they can really easy to just go there and trade, and they don't necessary to actually learn how to bridge because they still operate on their UA wallet on the original chain.
Yeah, I think intents have an ability to afford users a better user experience overall. I don't think it matters whether it's a rollup or a layer one or what type of blockchain abstraction you want to call it. I think the idea is that users have preferences and they want to express those things. And they don't want to think about the complexities of having to move funds cross chain. And they don't want to have to think about trust assumptions in terms of bridging as well. I think actually, if you go back to Research Day in New York City, Uma from Succinct gave a tremendous talk on this exact concept. Others have talked about the UX of bridging as well and being difficult. But in general, I think the idea is to abstract away this complexity for the user so they're able to express specifically what it is that they want out of their preference, and then it could be fulfilled for them in a way that is cheap, fast, and satisfactory.
Gotcha. Thanks for sharing. And can you discuss the real world use case about intent technology in your projects or not in your projects? And how do you see it can be improved in the future? Let's begin with Apriori.
Sure. This is a really interesting topic, something that touches on some recent work that I've done. In particular, there is a concept application called Public Signal. We just wrote an article about it. It's on our blog. Check it out, onoma.net/blog. And basically, the idea is intent-centric Kickstarter with dominant assurance contracts and demand-side aggregation. So what does this mean? This means that today in Kickstarter, you have this all or nothing model with assurance contracts, such that if the entrepreneur does not get their project funded, credit cards are not charged and backers do not pay anything. But if the entrepreneur meets their funding threshold, then credit cards are charged and the entrepreneur gets their funding. Unfortunately, only about 41% of projects on Kickstarter are funded. And so that's a large percentage, about 59%, which are not funded. And historically, that number has actually been closer to 37%. And so with this concept of dominant assurance contracts, which pioneers on a paper written by Alex Tabarot in 1998, you have this idea of refund bonuses. And what this idea means is that the entrepreneur could guarantee if after 50% of the project is funded, the first 50% of backers are able to get a 10% refund bonus on their capital, which would be somewhat like risk-free. You have an incentive then, if you think the project's not going to get funded, to go ahead and invest. And then as the project gets closer to getting funded, then you become more pivotal and you might have some private value for this public good. And so you're going to go ahead and invest to push it over the finish line. And in the laboratory setting, there's a follow-up in 2019 about this. In this paper, they found that about 67% of projects got funded with dominant assurance contracts. So this is something very interesting that you could do with intents, matching funders and backers. And this also gives you a nice property as well with demand-side aggregation. So a group of backers could come together and say, we would like to build, some type of crypto phone. You could do some voting, do some consensus over that voting, and then an entrepreneur could see this as an intent and then express an intent that they would like to build that and settle that on chain. There would have to be some type of off-chain arbitration as well, perhaps not related to court systems, something more crypto native, but this is the basic idea. There's many such cases though. There's things like time banks, which are very interesting. There's things like decentralized credit networks. I think this is really the future use case of intents, is kind of bringing some of these things to users, which today are a bit inaccessible with where blockchains are today.
Cool. Well, let's just think about, in the real world, let's say you want to buy Nike shoes, right? You probably go to Amazon, just search Nike shoes and you pick the shoes you like. And you just pay the money. You don't need to, learn everything by yourself. But now in the crypto world, especially for DeFi, right? You need to learn how to do the settlement yourself. You need to learn how to bridge tokens yourself. You even, need to buy the gas fee. And everything have to be handled by the users. That's too troublesome. So that's why we built up depots will make everything easier by just having EOA wallet. Let's say you have money, just stablecoin on BNB. And probably you want to go, let's say, maybe Uniswap on Arbitrum. Currently, you have to bridge your tokens there, and you must buy ETH as gas fee. But by using our solution, you don't need to do any of those anymore. You just need to pay your stablecoins. Then you get your order fulfilled on the Arbitrum on Uniswap.
Yeah, so in terms of real world use cases, right now, the blockchain industry is mainly focused on DeFi. So with interface as it is out right now, we are able to do a seamless cross-chain bridging and swapping of tokens. So if you use interface, for instance, you can swap a token from like Arbitrum to another token on Ethereum with just 2 clicks for the user experience. Obviously, with interface, we're thinking more in general intent future. So we are not just focused on DeFi per se. So one emerging maybe DeFi use case could be when we use real-world assets on-chain that our platform, a user can express, hey, I have this, let's say, at Starbucks points that I want to tokenize, and I want to redeem it for USDC. They could use interface to do that. But as I said, that's more on the DeFi side. But we envision a future where more use cases other than DeFi will emerge. And we're hoping that the whole ecosystem itself is building these, let's say, next killer apps that are outside DeFi. So one Web2 example is skyscanner.com, booking.com. These are like really successful intent-based platforms where the user just says, I want a flight from London to San Francisco, presses one button for quoting, presses one button for payment. That's a really nice use case, and we envision a future where this will happen in blockchain soon.
Yeah, so I think my real world intent-based system, so like real world, I talk about maybe how I got here. I live in New York, and I flew from New York to Paris to Istanbul. And when I went to Google Flights, like I didn't type in, I want to fly from X to Y to Z at this time, that time. I just like kind of declared my intent of like, I want to go to Istanbul. I had a series of preferences and it kind of solved this for me. So like kind of taking this real world example and mapping it onto what I've been working on most recently, Uniswap X, where we have kind of a similar experience for users where right, they don't really care about the route they take to get from token A to B. They just want to buy whatever hot new meme coin is coming out. And so we can abstract away that layer from them, broadcast out this like cryptographically enshrined like intent, and solve it for them. So I think like, just most closely to things I'm working on, that's kind of my real world intent based system. I think other things I think about are we've been doing a little exploring around smart contract wallets. Like one issue that we've kind of ran into is you deploy your smart contract wallet to a bunch of different L2s, and maybe you can deploy with the same settings. So you can have your social recovery settings or your spending limit settings on all these different chains. But if you want to go and change it, like if you were to do this in like a non-intent-centric based way, you'd have to go to each change, update each setting. But imagine if instead you could like sign this intent and broadcast it out to a solver network, and they go and update each one of your smart contract wallets for you. Yeah.
Thank you. And let's welcome Kartin.
Yo, sorry for me being late.
It's okay. Let's introduce yourself and your project to the audience.
Yeah, my project is Hyper Oracle. I'm the co-founder. We are building a programmable ZK Oracle protocol that will enable smart contract to more computation and more data for the smart contract to do more things. And at this moment, we already enable like large model like Llama, ChatGPT in the smart contract, and also any custom compute with on-chain historical data. In the future, we will also support internet data with ZK Oracle.
Sure. So we were discussing about the real world use case of intent technology. Do you want to share your thoughts a little bit here?
Yeah, as like a panelist, I always raise unpopular opinion. And I think the world is like a crypto industry is split into 2 directions. The first direction is like we call intent. It's more like, but before we answer what's intent, right? Like what is centralized exchange is intent? Like I want to buy a token, I go to centralized exchange and buy a token, right? The centralized exchange actually is the intent, right? And so Another direction is like I want to execute everything fully on chain, and so obviously that's not intent. It's like and so I just want to raise this like phenomena in the space that like people want to use another better word on a centralized server, and I feel like intent is a really good idea, and but in the same time we need to like be careful that like when you execute something intent, it means like somebody can manipulate it. And when I want to just use one click to buy a token, what's the price? Is it the price that like another people can modify the price? So I buy expensive. It's just like Robinhood, right? Like you buy the same stock, you expensive in Robinhood. It's out the same stock, it's like cheaper in Robinhood. And so I just want to say that like intent might have some use case, but essentially it's like kind of like a wrapper for a centralized provider.
Yeah, thank you for adding a little bit spice on the stage here for me. And yeah, so next questions, let's discuss the implications of intents in decentralization and efficiency of block proposers and transaction execution. Do you want to start, Kartin?
Yeah. So I already like say thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think intent execution definitely really great. Like in the space, there's a rising idea about constrained centralized exchange. That I think is a really good fit for the real world application for intent, because like in intern you need some mechanism to constrain the server provider to not being evil, and in this case, like the new idea of constrained centralized exchange is pretty good, and I think that will be like really good like execution layer that you have some mechanism to ensure it cannot be cheated or cannot be modified. And in Oracle, basically we use ZK proof to ensure the node operator cannot be cheated. And traditional Oracle basically like based on some voting and multi-sig mechanism to ensure the data and the computation is correct. But I think like that is manipulatable, right? If someone have like computer got hacked by some hacker, and then the result won't be right. And then if multiple people got hacked, and then the result won't be right. Sometimes it's not because these people want to be evil. Sometimes it's just their computer got hacked. And so that's why we need like some constraint method to make this provider to prove themselves they are having a good intention when we do some operation, when they do some operation for another people. Yeah, so in execution layer, it's really important for intent application that have a constraint method for the provider that is like can make sure they have no way to be evil.
Yeah, so the implications of intent in decentralization and efficiency of block proposer and transaction execution.
Interesting. I think there's a few different questions in there. I mean, I think the first thing that would be important to note is that oftentimes when people talk about intents, they seem to assume that we're talking about Ethereum or EVM related products that are backward compatible with Ethereum. So that's not universally true, in particular in our case. The second thing I would point out about Ethereum is today you have two block builders, rsync and Beaverbuild, which dominate barely about 50% of the market, and both of them run their own trading firms. And so they're winning the sex-to-dex arbitrage consistently. And as a result of this, searchers are actually sending their long tail bundles to these guys. And so they're continuing to dominate the market. So I would argue today's status quo of transaction-centric nature is just highly centralized in the way that it is designed. And so I think that in certain architectures, the idea would be that the role of a solver is somewhat of a hybrid between a searcher and a builder. Like today on Ethereum, I think last year there was something like 200 bundles that were attempted to be sent. But some searchers who have done analysis on this have said that maybe only 10 searchers were profitable. And so if you take maybe the 4 block builders, which would be rsync, Beaver, Titan, and Flashbots, and maybe the Faith builder who is new to the market, and maybe another new entrant or two, you're really looking only at about 15 players doing all of the MEV action on Ethereum. And so as a result of this, I say, well, if you can have more than that, if you can have something like, let's say, Suave, where you have a marketplace for mechanisms, where you have different solvers all running various versions of TEEs, maybe you can get that number up to like 50 players. To me, that is strictly better than what we have today with centralized block production. So the FUD that intents are somehow more centralizing, I don't necessarily buy that. I think for the EVM, there are specific concerns for how you encode this. And I do think that there is this nature of like, trust me, bro, depending on who you are sending your intent to. But I don't necessarily buy into that they're more centralizing. And in fact, I think you can design a system such that it is more decentralizing. So for instance, solving an ANOMA could actually be done peer-to-peer individually by users before you decided to send it to a group of solvers. You could also ensure some welfare criteria where solvers are required by the application logic to batch intents, and then you have multiple rounds of consensus on those intents, or just one round of consensus, and then the intents are decrypted with the threshold decryption protocol, and then they are matched and solved only in that batch. And some intents won't be solved there. So I think, in some of those real world use case applications also that I talked about, these don't require mega builders or mega solvers. They actually likely will just have localized solvers or application specific solvers. Like think about if you had a Google Flight solver, they're probably not going to be the same person that's interested in solving for Uniswap X. They might be. There might be economies of scale there, but there probably wouldn't be. So I think that tangibly in the Ethereum ecosystem, probably there will be this hybridization of searcher builders. And I think this will start to emerge as Suave comes to market. And you can get more participants. And I think that is where all the order flow is going to go in the future.
So for myself, right, mentioning about sci-fi is quite interesting because it's intent. But now we need it for the decentralized ones, right? That's why we want to use it. It's because it's decentralized. There will be so many providers, but I won't be worried if it'll be controlled by major players because so many providers they have their own solutions, and there are so many aggregators are helping to find the best solutions. Maybe some of the Oracle can tell you which chain have the cheapest price. Maybe someone like a 1inch can give you the best exchange, give you the best price and the liquidities. Once you get all of those informations, you can build up all the process in one block. You don't necessarily like now, right? You must bridge a token waiting for probably several blocks, even if it's roll up, it's one day. Then you go there, you do trade, and you bridge back. All of those will be solved by the intent, and everything will be proposed in one block and will be confirmed in the different chains. So I would say it's more like saving the time, and also it's better experience for the users because they can just get things done within probably 1 minute after, I would say, like one block for confirm. I mean, one block to propose and probably 3-4 blocks to confirm.
So in terms of the centralization aspects of solvers, that a solver might be too powerful in the end. I don't necessarily agree with that because if you open your marketplace of solvers and you have, let's say, an intent from a user, then the user will naturally choose the best quote. So as long as you have one honest solver who is having the best interest for the user, that entity will always win, right? So as long as you incentivize some competition between the solvers and an open marketplace, I think you can mitigate that centralization aspects of solving. Of course, the more complex an intent it gets, the more specialized solvers you will need, the less people can do that. But let's say most people might not be interested in very complex intents. They would be maybe just interested in, I actually just want to do cross-chain stuff. There, the entry barrier is quite low, so a lot of people are able to solve this. And as I said, as long as one person or one solver is honest, they will receive the quote.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I still think there's a centralization risk to some of these intent-based systems, maybe more specifically when you're talking about swapping. I definitely do buy and believe in this like specialization, decentralization kind of like narrative where as you have more generalized intent protocols, you'll have like a more diverse market of solvers and builders, etc. So you don't have the centralization risks that come with these like vertically integrated block builder, solver, rsync, beaver kind of players. But I don't think it's like a given. I think we have to actively build things and like push those narrative forwards.
But let me ask you a question. We're already centralized today. So how is a new solution going to be worse? Like when you have two searcher builders that are dominating the market, I don't see how you can get more dystopian than that with intents.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's
I think it's a narrative that Paradigm put out in their article that they issued early in the year, which was very good, by the way. But I just think if you look at the data and how things line up today, it's just we're already at that dystopia, and people want to say that solvers somehow are going to make it worse, but we're already there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I think there are definitely problems in the centralization of the builder solver market. But I don't know. I don't think it's like throw my hands up in there and say there's no possible solutions and that it's done. So
Yeah,
Yep.
I think like the people always have like need to think about why we use crypto, right? Like if we're just looking for like more user and like a more efficient system, obviously like PayPal is a really good product. We don't need Bitcoin, we don't need Ethereum, right? Obviously, and so in blockchain space, I think the priority is actually permissionless and decentralized. You know, and so intent is a good direction we go, but like it's just like we need to have like a more sophisticated constraint mechanism for the resolver. And but so far there's no paradigm or standard for this kind of thing. And at this moment I just feels like it kind of like a rapper. You know?
Yep. So yeah, we are running out of time a little bit, but we have the last questions. So what's your future approach to designing the intent-centric architecture in your projects or your products? Let's begin with you.
So in our product specifically, the next thing we're working on is cross-chain. Yeah, so just hoping to make that cross-chain swapping experience a lot better, a lot quicker, using these intent-based architectures.
With interface, we're trying to build a composable intent-based platform. So that means, in practice, we're looking through the whole ecosystem, what protocol is doing what, and we are trying to integrate these protocols with us. So a solver is able to query our platform and find the best existing protocol for a specific functionality.
Yeah, so for us, it's definitely the mass adoptions. Because, you know, around here, you must know a lot about the blockchain. You know it's how great it is. It's decentralized. You can find multiple providers. But as a user, right, they think it's quite troublesome, especially a lot of people now, they only have fiat. They don't even have the cryptos, but they want to try the product. They want to probably try the lending service, but they don't know how. That's what we're gonna design. In the future, all the users, let's say they just use us as a like a PayPal, but at the end, everything is all provide the other providers. Let's say Quick Swipe, Campbell, they can all has their own service, maybe RV and Curve. But as a user, they don't need to understand all of those who gives the best price. But we will find them the best solution, and they just enjoy the service.
Yeah, so Anoma is a architecture designed around intents. So really what I'm excited about is the Anoma network's emergence, and it's for autonomous communities. And I'm really curious to see what types of applications can be built that are beyond everything that exists today, some of the things that I listed off before. But in particular, some of the things that I'm more passionate about are things like public goods funding, creating a marketplace of public goods funding mechanisms, which people are incentivized to go and fund public goods. And I think when we can do things like this and we can create these environments with the architectures, I think we can get a lot of innovation. But that being said, oftentimes users don't understand the affordances of a particular technology. And so as a result of this, we're really unsure about where it's going to go. But with our protocol, we are designed around intents. And so we're very excited about the future.
Yeah, so in my opinion, like I would say 90% people still really confused what the heck is intent, right? Like actually, so do I. It's just like unclear definition what the fuck is intent, and so in my opinion, I think like the whole space will go to the future that in the layer one blockchain, it will have more and more condensed of information. I'm just gonna decode the whole thing with like the first principle. Like, so for essentially what you really want to do is that you want to put more information in the constant size of the block. So that, which means like you want to compress as much more as possible as information, as much as possible into a certain size of the block. So which means that you will want to use zero knowledge proof in this case, or any another kind of proving system to compress the information into the blockchain, use the succinctness by the proving system. And so in the future, I will foresee that like there will be more and more the metric in the future to measure a successness of a blockchain will no longer be the TPS or like the block size and whatever. It will be like how many ZK proof in one block. I think it's my 2 cents for this like kind of direction for industry.
Yeah, so my apologies. And the timer has changed. So we have 8 minutes to talk about. So I promise this is the last question. Regarding the landscape of intents, yeah, be happy. We have one last question. So regarding to the landscape of the intent, what do you see, the key areas of the innovation, and what do you believe there will be, that's going to be emerging in the next few years? Not we're talking about right now, but more in the later future. Yeah. Do you want to begin, Kartin?
Sure. Yeah. I think in the longer term of future, it will have like many layer 2 as we saw, right? And so people will tend to do more things with blockchain and lower the security requirement for the underlying technology. And but like we will see more and more consumer app that will use the blockchain to do something. And that's like consumer app and AI driven the app. I think will be definitely a good a big thing in the future 3 to 5 years once the technology is more sophisticated in the space.
Yeah, so I think one of the things you just touched on, intents aren't real, right? We haven't necessarily.
I mean, it's just a term. Like it's no real and not real. It's just like it doesn't have really clear definition of what it actually is, right? Like blockchain is really obvious that a blockchain is like basically a Merkle tree plus a ledger in a Merkle tree, and then use hash function to connect them together. That's blockchain.
And an intent, you could say, is a credible commitment to a preference function over a given state space or a shared state space, right? I mean, there are ways to define these things, and I guess what I'm saying in the future is that probably pretty soon we'll have some mathematical precision around the definition of an intent, and I think that will help everybody. I also think that Essential has done some great work pioneering an ERC around this already for the Ethereum community, and in particular, I think once people digest that, that is something that teams building on Ethereum could align around, and I think the standardization of intents will be very helpful. And also Uniswap X has done a lot of pioneering with, I think, even just breaking the ice of talking about the word intent. And so I think probably the standardization will be the thing to look for in the near future.
For myself, right, for the longer term, it's really to resolve the real world issues. For nowadays, let's say you go to a bank, you want to get a loan. You don't know what's the difference, why some bank charge you like 5.5%, some bank charge you like 4%. You have no idea what's inside, right? And in the future, if all the banks, they become the DeFi providers, they will show you more. It's, how much money they has, how much money they have been, being loaned out. And you will see everything clearly, then, it's easy for you to transfer your loan to somewhere. By doing that, it's really need, once this regulation drama finished, a lot of banks are ready to be the liquidators for the local stable coins. Once it's ready, probably everyone can enjoy it more than just, DeFi, maybe also, Forex, the whole world will be changed. And that's why all the intent providers here, right, to help them build the infrastructure there.
Maybe I want to comment on the challenges that we as an intern serving protocols are facing in the future. So there needs to be innovation happening in the space of intent compilation. So how can a user express their intent and that a tech stack can understand it? So which means let's say you have a Google search, right? You're literally writing words, and then the platform is understanding that query. We need something similar in that direction for intent-based systems in blockchain. So there are different approaches. For instance, Uniswap X uses basically an API call that you can query with your fixed input data to use their platform. Anoma is using a custom VM, I think, and a programming custom domain-specific language to build new intent dApps. I also see how maybe through the recent search of LLMs that can be leveraged to compile intent statements to code output that a system can understand. So there needs to be some innovation happening, I think, in this space. Other than that, it is also really hard. It is a hard problem once you go cross-chain as well. So if you have cross-chain intents, you need to have some kind of atomicity requirements because you don't want your funds to be stuck on one chain and then the other chain can't execute. So what is the solver then doing? Do we want to enforce the solver to pay us back? But then let's imagine you have a 1 million ETH swap to, I don't know, the Polkadot ecosystem, and the solver is like, oops, yeah, the funds are lost now. And maybe the slashing of our platform will just slash a 10K stake. Yeah, then he will have a net win, right? So there needs to happen some innovation in that space, how we can solve cross-chain atomicity and how we can set the incentives right for all the solvers in the ecosystem to be behaving in goodwill.
Yeah, so I think maybe in the short term, more cross-chain interoperability, and then in the longer term, more just these generalized intent protocols. Like one example I saw at a hackathon recently was, like you were saying, using natural language to do swapping. So like parsing people's intents out of, just like a text blob and then acting on it. I think the coolest example though, like much more long term, I took this from an Anoma talk that I listened to recently, is this idea like if you could conditionally, if you're going to maybe like a music festival or something, if you could conditionally book your trip based on, buying this concert ticket with this flight at this time, and also if, Saturday is like 75 degrees, nice sunny weather. So just these like very long-term, high-level, generalized intent-based apps, I think, get me really excited.
Yep. And yeah, maybe in the future there will be like a proof of intent or something, right? Using the ZK proof. That's a very interesting discussion, and a round of applause to our panelists here. Thank you.
This gentleman have a question.
Do you guys have any questions?
So I know there's no exact mathematical definition of intents, and
There is.
I'm just a noob then. I want to ask you guys, how would you define intents, like in a couple sentences? I know there might be some variations, so I want to hear from you, like how you personally define intents.
So basically, don't get me wrong. Actually, my team is the first team in the world that translate the intent article into Chinese, and also we are also one of the first team to write article to say what's imagine the future of intent long times ago actually, and but like the thing is that right now we did lack of the clear definition. We do have a definition, but the definition is just in a super like in a surface level. It's like have a really good user experience. Somehow you just like want to do something and it happen. It's just like some people want to say, hey, I want to use AI, right? AGI, that I want to just ask any question, I will have an answer for it. And we all know that it's unrealistic. And so like right now, the biggest problem in intents is not about like how good is the user experience is. It's about how to make it happen correctly, decentralizedly, permissionlessly. And it just I didn't see any like clear standard at this moment. So if we have to put down a definition for intent, for me, it's more like enhance the user experience for the app at this moment.
Yeah, I would recommend you check out some of the credible commitment literature in game theory economics. In particular, starting with 1971, there was a paper about super games, which is about iterated games. But beyond that, there's a series of papers written called Program Equilibria. And this one goes through the prisoner's dilemma example with credible commitments. And I think that's a really good place to start. And also Sheen from Flashbots, if you check out crediblecommitments.wtf, you can find some of this literature directly. And I think this will help you kind of gain like a better, just rooted in the literature understanding of an intent rather than somebody's technical definition or somebody's intuitive definition up here.
Yeah, so intent is you want to do something and you finish it, right? But specifically for the blockchain, it's how to make it easier for everyone. You want to treat something, but you don't need to spend much time to learn how to do it because someone built the infra for you. You just need to use it. That's it.
In terms of mathematical definitions, there is an article by a guy called Fabrizio that I can send you if you want. But basically, the idea is you describe the state space of an EVM basically as a grid of adjacent states. And when you have an intent, you're starting at one particular state and you're trying to find the path to a desired region within that grid, right? So it's hard to express it in words, but there are like a lot of plots. And then you can use Lagrangian mechanics from physics to describe the overall system of the EVM by pinpointing the current EVM state plus a vector that tells you in which direction the solver needs to go to get to a better state. And once you can formalize that intent, and basically the essential idea is just like you're trying to find the desired regions in the EVM state space for the user. That's what the solver is trying to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think it helps to maybe do some of this formal reading, but my intuitive definition would just be like your declaration on a given outcome rather than the path to it, something like that.
As you pointed out that solver network in general, Ethereum community are more centralized part. So there is a two question into the Uniswap, like how we can bet what is the best price or like best outcome from the solver which solving the problem. So either we can define it can be giving out more profit to the user or either it can be the best price. So how can we make that part more decentralized in a network to choose the output? Because let's say every time we put the outcome there to solve, there can be a same solver who giving out the result. Then what is the point of other solver wants to doing that? Like, because if someone has a mastermind, they then come and he will solve the problem. So there is some kind of a network of the solver will be there in that case. So how we define that, and does we have any like in the future framework kind of a solver which can be anyone, any normal user, like how in Ethereum can build the Git client and it can be the part of the ecosystem as of the solver. So that, and that solver network should have the categorized thing in the path, like in the sub solver kind of thing. Like let's say this kind of solver has to do, the main solver has to do the major thing and the sub solver do the categorized thing, like this has to swap, there's some has to do the identical verification, or some has to do the zk stuff together, and all together that submit to the main solver to do the things. How you think this is the future in general?
Well, I think in Ethereum land, and I think Riley might be more apt to speak on this, but I think the emergence of Suave as a marketplace for mechanisms where you can permissionlessly deploy any kind of mechanism, I think that is the way to go about it in seeing who can create the best incentives. And there will be various types of like degen stuff that happens there where people give you random incentives to use their mechanism. But I think in general, the more permissionless that you can make it to create these mechanisms, the better it will be for users and outcomes. And the more that you will have some of this like slowly bundle merging into a block, snowball. And I think that's the idea. In ANOMA, you have this idea of partial transactions, and you can merge partial transactions and do partial solving before you fully balance transaction. So this would be very similar to taking small bundles and then merging them into a bigger bundle, and then eventually merging them into a block. So I think Suave really is kind of the end game for intents on Ethereum.
Oh, actually, thanks for your question. You just remind me of a thing that I have put down conclusion now what is intent will be. Thanks for your question, actually. And I think what we're gonna actually like unify all the concept of intent at this moment will be zkVM. And especially like we co-developed the ZK Wasm with Delphinus Lab, and that is like the first feasible zkVM in the world that's running. And then that basically like no matter what you do, you just describe the logic for your action, and then we generate the proof for it, no matter what like action you want to do. And so by this way, we'll be able to like unify all the concept in the intent to aggregate with ZKP into the blockchain. And I think zkVM actually is the key to for the intent future.
Real quick, I would just want a +1 on Suave for sure. I definitely think that is going to be like one of the prevalent solutions. I think like some of these like RFQ type projects have certain token mechanics. I feel like that's kind of like a band-aid fix or like a short-term vision. And then also too, I hope that like with the proliferation of more generalized intent-based apps, there is this more specialized solver that hopefully leads to this like more diverse solver network.
Yeah, one last question here.
So I appreciate you guys giving sort of like the technical version and the intuitive versions of what intents are. But as it pertains to the how, and maybe there isn't even a standard yet that's unified across the entire ecosystem, but what are some of the methodologies, some of the sequence of steps, I guess, to achieve an intent? And what are some of the, maybe there's not just one, it might be context dependent. What are some of them that excite you guys?
Sure, I can say how we were thinking about intents more formally as constraint satisfaction problems, which are very general, and there's a lot of mathematical literature around this idea. We have a forum post that's up on the blog, and it's also on our Twitter feed. I'd be happy to share it with you after.
Yeah, I think like what will make the key difference here for intent evolution, it will be like some new, more efficient proving system that can compress as much as like information into one proof. And it's basically we need like a more efficient proving system. So it's like we are always like just get a data metric. Like 8 months ago, the Halo 2 we use is like about 3 minutes to generate a proof for k equal to 22 size of the circuit, and right now it will be like 5 seconds. But even k equal to 22 is like a bunch polynomial, but still it's really small circuit. And what we really want is like a giant circuit that can handle every request to the blockchain. So I think once we can reach like k to the 42 kind of circuit size, we can definitely to do way more stuff and make intent become more realistic.
Yeah, I think a lot of like infrastructure need to be improved, like say sequencers, anti-MEV, all the stuff. That will definitely help the intent, because no matter what you build the final structure, right, you still need the infra underneath to help you finish it.
I think what most excites me about intent-based platform is you're actually helping the user a bit by having solvers competing with each other. So let's say the MEV that got lost otherwise because the user was executing everything manually is partially paid back to the user because the solver is really trying to help you find the best quote, right? Of course, the solver gets a small cut of that, but it's better than nothing. And I think an intent-based platform will shift the power dynamics from the MEV collection from, let's say, the block proposals partially back to the users because they will get a better quotes. And I think that's something we need to do with an industry to push back to the, let's say, the MEV scrapers, searches, right? Yeah.
I guess that's the last question, and that's it for today. Thank you.
Very, very interesting discussions around intent. And thank you all again. Thank you, our panelists and hosts. So I guess that's it for all the panels and talks today. As we draw the curtains on today's Foresight Summit, on behalf of Foresight X, I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to each one of you. And your presence, your insights, and discussions have made this event not just successful, but truly inspirational. And today, we traversed the fascinating landscape of decentralized society, delving into trustless infrastructures, new social graphs, and the transformative power of emerging technologies. The perspectives shared from the social panel to the intent panel have illuminated the path where we are journeying together in this exciting and evolving space. And as you leave today, we hope you carry with your fresh ideas, new connections, and a renewed sense of purpose in shaping the future of DSOC. And that's continue to collaborate, innovate, and drive the change that we want to see in the world. Until we meet again, keep pushing boundaries and envisioning a more interconnected and decentralized future. Let's keep building. All right. Thank you all. And that's it for the whole day summit. Thank you all again, and have a nice day.